Welcome, everyone. We're back again here for another little tech chat, I'd like to say. Now, specifically focused on pyramid analytics. I'm here with Oliver. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Oliver Lorig. I'm a pre-sales solution engineer with Pyramid, responsible for the DACH and the Nordics area. And my main focus is to support the sales guys, provide the product demos, answering the RFQs and doing kind of POCs, proof of value stuff.
Yeah.
All the good things around the product.
So you're always involved in the early stages of projects.
I'm always involved in the early stages. I try to convince the sales guys that they are doing the qualifications so I can get better prepped into that process. But I'm in there from the, let's say, the first engagement with the customer and then hand it over to our customer success organization when the customer signed and we are going to implement the product on site.
And the seeds of success are planted early.
The seeds of success are planted early, yes. And during the process, there might be important steps when, for example, when it comes to the proof of value, that really prove that what you promised is actually working for that specific customer. And that's the final proof point, the final seed.
Yeah.
That will grow very quickly then.
I think one thing that's difficult is when you're at that stage, there are some things that feel like they're valuable, but maybe the organization isn't used to measuring that value. You know, they're like, we'll save time or something, but you know, you don't always measure how much time you're spending on a certain thing. How do you deal with those kind of, I mean, it's not easy when you're counting money, but in those circumstances, how do you usually do?
I think it's twofold. One is when you're thinking about the outcomes and value that you can provide with that POV to a specific customer. And this is really then about nailing it down to the wow moments and to the specific outcomes that the customer wants to achieve. And you could even go that way that you say, we want to, let's say, put specific numbers behind a value that we want to achieve. Could be reducing number of reports, could be reducing number of time to create reports, enabling more end users to do self-service analytics. Could be some of these KPIs, but it could also be just broken down to specific outcomes that you might not want to put into specific numbers. And I think the second thing is that either goes in line or could follow up after that one is a business case, right? Where you go into the details, bring in number of users, and then you have your metrics to calculate that one. And what we typically see is that the customer take that one, that maybe we provided, and then use it as an input for their own business case that they have to use because of their compliancy within the organization.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, I guess with RFQs, you know, the requirements list is not something that you get to design, and sometimes they're probably well designed, and other times they're designed by IT and perhaps missing a lot of the things that are really going to make a project successful or not.
Sometimes it's designed by the business because they know their requirements. Sometimes, I think, less of the time it's defined by IT, because I think in the space that where we are working is most of the time IT is, I don't want to say just the data input provider, but maybe sometimes the host of the data or host of the application. But most of the time the RFQs are coming from the business or a core team that's a combination out of IT and the business guys.
Right. And I suppose that's because the capabilities that you offer are more geared towards producing those kinds of results, which is why the request would come from there. But for the people that don't know Pyramid Analytics, what kind of a product are you? Can you summarize that?
I think to describe Pyramid in a few words, Pyramid is a platform that brings together the business intelligence pieces, like visualization, reporting, dashboarding, the data prep piece, like connecting to different data sources, servers, databases, and doing the ETL process. And I have to say, most of the time, we don't do the ETL process because we leave the data where it is. We do direct query against the data sources. Oh. And the third piece is bringing data science, machine learning, and AI to the table.
So that's a pretty holistic grip of things.
It is.
What pieces are included that you usually work together with or integrate with? Are you so I think that for instance, a lot of cloud vendors want to give the impression that they're a one-stop shop for everything end to end, and if you just stick to one of the cloud vendors, they'll have the whole picture.
Yeah.
Where do you find that it's important to sort of fit in and in the end-to-end AI and data maturity journey, if you will?
Yeah, I think what we see with a lot of customers is that they are using not all of their data, let's say less than 50%,
Okay.
And even just 30 or 20% of the people are really having access to that data. And this is one thing where we said as a platform, we can bring that data and analysis and decision making to the top management, to the frontline workers, to the data analysts, the data scientists.
Yeah.
So we can reach every one of those. And it's really an end-to-end approach. And I think a couple of years ago, we decided to rebuild the platform for, rebuild the product for just that purpose, and to be able to access more data sources out of the box. Being able to, let's say, align that data to make the data in a governed and security way available for people who want to create new models, new logic on top of that data sources, but also provide the security to the frontline workers, to the business units, the managers, that they are only allowed to see what they should be allowed to see in that data set.
Right.
Right? So the whole governance piece in one platform.
So this becomes a bit of a catalyst to more experimentation if you start, and I guess I'm wondering, you know, you're saying that not all the data is being used. Is that because it's a technical limitation oftentimes, or is it simply an organizational? You know, they haven't gotten around to it. Like what?
I think it's both. I think it's both. Sometimes it's that the organization. We had it this morning in the workshop that they don't even know that the data exists.
Yeah.
Right. And the other one is that maybe IT doesn't want to give access to these people. Right. And sometimes you have the thing that they approach IT. Could you please give me an extract out of that data? We want to use this for reporting. IT says, don't bother me again. Right. And then if you provide IT the capability that they can, let's say, create a user with a specific subset in that data, and that one is then connected to Pyramid. User access, go into there, Pyramid can access the data directly from the data source.
Right.
Right. No need to duplicate the data, no need with Excel sheets, no need with maybe looking at the final product and or final outcome, and the data isn't what you expect, because on that way to the final result, it has been massaged so many times, it's not really reflecting the truth anymore.
Right.
Right.
I think it's interesting. You said just a moment ago that you could do processing where the data is and then bring the results in, which suggests to me that you could, in theory, if you could, in theory, do the processing in Pyramid Analytics if you want to. Okay, so the question is, that means there's a bit of overlap between Pyramid Analytics and some other tools, and obviously you guys can do things that those tools can't, and those tools might be able to do things that Pyramid can't. How do you think, what would you recommend to people when they're trying to decide what stuff that overlaps between the plethora of tools that people are, have in production, how to decide which one of those to use for what? So, here we've been talking about data catalogs, and data catalog products, they can't do any data processing. Pyramid Analytics probably has a lot of those capabilities, but maybe is missing some kind of, GPU, low-level programming thing. I don't know. How do you reason about that and decide what responsibility to put on what tool?
I think it also depends on the use cases and the situation with the customer. Because if you're talking about the data catalog tool, we can do data catalog functionality, but it's probably not as extensive as a core data catalog product could do.
Yeah.
So it's depending on, do you want to go in the direction of data catalog is right now more important to you, or is it maybe self-service for the end users and the whole data prep process before that, or is it around getting easy machine learning elements into the hands of data analysts, data scientists, and maybe provide these quickly to the end users? So it's really depending on the use case. And yes, a platform that handles business intelligence, data prep, and data science is probably in all these categories not the core, deepest, best product overall. So you have to decide, is all of this with a centralized governance approach, not copying the data, is this important to me? Then it's probably the right thing. If I'm looking for a business intelligence solution that provides me the best and shiny dashboards with all the details and fancy stuff that can be done with other products, maybe Pyramid is not the right solution for it, right?
But this does tie what we were talking to about earlier, where maybe getting started is more important than the complete feature list. I think a lot of times when people send out RFQs, they, it's checkboxes. Do you have this feature? Do you have this feature? And the question is, to take data catalog, if there are data catalogs that have a ton more features, is it more important that you start working on something giant, or that you have your data cataloged at all? And if Pyramid Analytics has that function, why not use it?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And as you mentioned, the RFQs, RFX documents, most of the time they have something in there. This is a must-have requirement. This would be nice to have. This should be there. And then you can go from there and decide about, okay, what would be the roadmap for that customer? And then you can discuss with this customer, we understood your situation right now is like this. We would recommend going that way. And the roadmap looks like this. So in the first piece, you have to start with these core elements and then extend from there, building up the skills, building up the maturity, also do the training for that product, right?
Right.
And this is I think it's and it's also providing a good, let's say, good feedback, good basis with the partnership with their customer to play open, play honest, and really to understand their situation right now, their challenges, and what is the roadmap looking like that they have in mind, and does it make sense if they go with Pyramid, for example?
Right. And where do you feel that you're getting the most traction? Are you getting most of the requests in by data scientists, by people that are trying to get a grip of their data in the organization, or people that are trying to maybe migrate old things and into a modern platform? Where is it mostly getting? Where are you getting most of the requests from?
I think most of the requests are coming from the, let's say, data prep governance perspective.
Oh.
That we don't want to. So, for example, one of the, let's say, unique selling points, I would say, for Pyramid is that we could direct query SAP, HANA, BW sources.
Cool.
So we leave the data there. And the good thing is that Pyramid has an intellectual property, our Piranha engine. What the Piranha engine does, it translates what the user is doing on the user interface. So when they create a grid, a table, and they start to do calculations on it, selecting columns, I want to multiply a ratio between this, do these calculations, that we do a kind of smart query shaping in the back with a Piranha engine and translate it to the underlying database. So we translate this either in SQL query code or an MDX query code and send it to the source system. So sometimes this leads to that we, for example, can do on a simple grid like 3 calculations, and if you want to do with another product, because they have to flatten down that table, because they cannot do that smart query shaping, they have to do like 18 calculations. And this means 18 queries against the source data system. So even if they could do direct query against that data source, they have to query the data source 18 times, and we can do it 3 times. So the response time is shorter, and the load on the performance of the source system is less, right?
Yeah, being able to design smart queries is a pretty powerful feature.
Absolutely.
In general.
Absolutely.
So how many integrations do you have with different backends? Do you have with Spark? You said SAP is cool. What kinds of backends do you integrate with?
I think there are so many different backends. We could go from cloud-based data sources with Amazon Athena, Amazon S3 databases, Azure, the Google Cloud. We could go for Snowflake, Exasol, Amazon Redshift. We could go for the Oracle, the MSQLs, Tabular, OLAP-based data sources. We could go for SAP HANA, SAP BW. And I think the specialty on SAP is we are 100% certified as a vendor with SAP. And this means we not only fulfill the required capabilities, but also the optional requirements. And optional requirements for SAP is like, can that vendor take that hierarchy out of Pyramid and directly use it in their system without creating that hierarchy again, or reusing all these formatting exercises like currency signs, 3-digit currency values, just take all this stuff automatically inherited into our solution. And the good thing about that is for SAP, we could also take the security settings within these source systems and inherit it in our solution. So if the user signs into Pyramid with single sign-on and wants to query or send a query against that SAP data source, that SAP data source knows that user is coming from Pyramid, and in our system, that user is only allowed to see this, this, and that. So in Pyramid, for that user and for that data source, we won't have a security setting because we take that out of SAP. But for the other system, we can set up the security on the server, on the database, on the model, or even on the row level.
Interesting. This brings to mind the hybrid cloud, which I still think, I wouldn't say it's fringe, but it's a word that's sort of cropped up now. And obviously everybody's been thinking about it. Man, it's going to be a problem that the marketing department is all AWS and the IT department is Azure, and the developers want their Google stuff. And so you come on top and say, you don't even say, let's collect it into our platform necessarily.
Absolutely right.
That is the most I shouldn't use these words, but like it's pretty obnoxious to say that you know, we can do everything if you take all of your stuff and move it into our platform. Of course you can.
Yeah.
So not being able to move it is not only a good engineering choice, but it's also a good design choice in general.
Yeah. So we really don't care where the data resides. We don't even care where they install Pyramid. Pyramid can be installed as a server application in their data center on-prem, virtual, so private cloud, public cloud. We run natively on AWS or Azure. We are on the marketplace listed.
Yeah.
So AWS EC2 instance, install that server, running. We could also run in a containerized environment. So every cloud provider that can run Kubernetes,
Right.
AWS, Azure, Google, IBM Cloud, Oracle Cloud, Alibaba, we can run on this system. And the fine thing about Kubernetes is the auto-scaling mechanisms.
Right.
And on the other hand side, we don't care where the data is.
Yeah.
Because if we get the connection either via VPN or we have a Pulse engine that can support on that one, if the data is in Amazon in the cloud somewhere, it's fine. We can connect to that one. If it's in their on-premise data source, fine. We connect to that one.
Yeah.
If they're using Snowflake or Exasol as a data source service provider where they host their data, fine. We can connect to that one. And there might be cases, when we talk about direct query, there might be cases where it is fine to direct query the data, but there might be cases where you want to combine that data because you want to do some advanced calculations on it, machine learning, whatever you want to do. And then we need to bring this data into a model to then join, union the data, do some ETL stuff around it. And we are not storing it in Pyramid. We are writing that result, so we are creating a kind of virtual model and then writing that result, that data, into a target database. And that could be either one of the data sources that we used as input, or it could be something completely different. But we could write it, for example, in a Redshift database, and then do direct query from there against that Redshift database. So we can support the ETL process when you need to copy the data to some other place because of the calculations you may want to do. But in most of the times for visualization and interactions between the data sources, we just need the direct query, fine.
But okay, let's see then. I'm going to ask you where Pyramid leans on the issue of on code versus no code stuff. Like which direction are you leaning on? Do you think we've been talking about self-service? I mean, everybody's familiar with self-service BI, and I think a lot of people now are hoping for self-service data science and maybe self-service advanced analytics. Where do you think it's trending toward? Can we get to no code self-service advanced analytics?
So I think Pyramid right now is pretty strong and pretty advanced when it comes to no-code, low-code development. So I think all the things that you can do around visualization, dashboarding, and even creating advanced formulas, KPIs, lists or patterns that you want to use across your visualization dashboarding environments can be done in a low-code environment with just drag and drop the elements, the data points in there, combine them, creating logic. But on the other hand side, if the end user or the data scientist is advanced and skilled, he can just switch this and turn it into a code version and write his own SQL statements, MDX statements to go from there. But we try to make the experience for the user as easy as possible. And this is something that if you look at the whole range of users in an organization, coming from the old school manager who just wants to have the PowerPoint on his desk, right? Ideally printed out from the secretary, to the guys who want to log into the system, slice and dice the data, do some analysis, go a little bit deeper, maybe change the visualizations, bring in new dimensions, new measures. It's also supported. But on the other side, there have to be people that develop that system forward, that create the content for the viewers, that create or bring in new data sources, that try out machine learning, AI algorithms. And also the guys who are the deep admins that take care that the data sources are connected, the data is up to date, the security is set up, and all this stuff. And this is where we work with profiles. With that profile, we can take a pro user and we could limit it down to less functionality than a viewer has. It doesn't make sense, but you can really slice and shape the user experience to the skills and the maturity of the individual user.
Cool. So for those that want to get started with Pyramid, that want to test it out, what's the best way to get started?
The best way to get started is reach out to Pyramid, either one of the sales reps in the region, or go to the website and ask for some information.
Okay.
And then we can support with, for example, a custom demo, or they can have access to a try environment, or we could even go in the direction of a POV when we say, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
The POV is the last proof point until we get into a partnership.
Okay, so it's entirely possible to give it a try on your real data.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks, Oliver.
You're welcome, Robert.
I think that was super interesting. Make sure to reach out either to Oliver or through the website for Pyramid Analytics. Hope you enjoyed that talk. Don't go away. We will be back shortly with more content for you all. So see you in the ether.
Cheers.